Hello. Thank you so much for joining. I can't believe we are in week 2 of Goddess of Gains. It's been so much fun to do this cohort for the first time with all of you, and I'm especially excited for today's call with our head coach, Sam, and she will be talking about how to optimize hormone, sleep, recovery, and beyond. And hopefully, all of you have gotten your email on Sunday too with resources, our sleep optimization guide and our recovery guide. And so if you guys have any questions during the call today, please just post them in the chat.
I'll just
Um,
say, I don't
going
know
to
if they saw you or not.
everyone, and then I'm going to unmute Sam and allow her to share her screen. And then Sam, I'm going to make you the host also so that you can add people as they join. Okay. Yes, and if anyone has any questions on anything, post them in the chat. I'll let Sam know because it's hard to see questions when you're presenting. And then obviously if you have any questions we don't get to on the call, we will answer those in the group as well. So yay for week 2.
All right. Can we see?
Not yet. I think it's like black, like it's loading.
Okay.
Oh, now I can.
Okay. All right, so we're good?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about hormone, sleep, and recovery because it is more than just fitness and nutrition. We have to kind of check all of the boxes, which, I mean, we've already discussed that a little bit with having fish, as a goal or water and things like that. So we're going to talk about the 3 pillars that impact muscle growth, which is hormones, sleep, and recovery. We'll talk about how to optimize each of them, why they're important, and all of the things. Okay, so muscle growth doesn't just happen in the gym. It happens when we rest,
Sam,
sleep, recover.
I'm not seeing the second slide for some reason.
Maybe it's just
Is
there.
anyone else? Okay. Just making
There it
sure.
goes.
Yep.
Okay, so we are going to talk about hormones, sleep, and recovery. Hormones are kind of like messengers to our cells as well as our muscles. They help to regulate muscle building as well as fat metabolism. So super important. As you guys know, and we'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty of each of one as we move forward. And then sleep, it allows your body to rebuild the muscle fibers that have been damaged during training. So we work hard during training. We also need to work hard during sleep. That's when in our brain, like the nerve endings can help with muscles and being able to talk better, like the nerves with the muscles so that you can, number one, get stronger, but then number 2, rebuilding those muscle fibers so that hypertrophy, we can build those muscles. And then recovery ensures that your muscles generate stronger. So kind of similar to what I just talked about, making sure that we're able to get enough recovery so that we're not continually spinning our wheels and becoming catabolic, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay, so first we're going to talk about the hormones. So, I mean, there's many hormones that are going to be involved in muscle building, but the primary ones are going to be testosterone. Testosterone stimulates muscle protein synthesis, and it's crucial for men and women. And as you know, we have to work harder as women, especially as we age. And that's kind of why when we were talking about the challenge and how important it is, we really wanted to just reiterate the fact about how important it is for women as we age, because that testosterone level is going to naturally decrease no matter what you do. Once you are postmenopausal and even getting into peri and premenopausal, our testosterone is slowly going down. So we have to really make an effort to keep that as high as possible. And we do that through strength training, especially those big compound lifts that you'll see a lot in Hungry Fitness physique training. It really does help boost the testosterone production. We'll talk about other things that do boost the testosterone production too. I mean, it's going to be your sleep, it's going to be managing stress, it's going to be fatty fish, it's going to be a lot of the same things as far as just hormones in general, right? And then we're going to talk growth hormone that stimulates tissue repair. So that's growth hormone's job is to promote tissue repair. So again, from muscle growth and fat metabolism, it's released during sleep. So then that's why we're going to talk about later. Again, how important sleep is, because even just like kids, that's kind of why when they're growing, when they go through those growth spurts, when you have little babies, sleep is more important. They want to sleep more because growth hormone, is higher and it's getting stimulated and all of our cells are being repaired during sleep to promote that tissue repair. And we won't get into it too much, but I know growth hormone, if you're in the bodybuilding world, is a popular thing to take. Some people will take extra growth hormone. We just have to be careful with that because growth hormone, like I mentioned, it repairs tissues. So if you're prone to cancers in the family, it will rebuild and regenerate, all of the cells, right? So even the ones that are maybe more prone to cancer. So we do have to be careful if we're taking it. I mean, we always do whenever we're taking anything, but especially growth hormone, just because it can, if you're prone to cancers in the family, it regenerates all of those tissues. So be careful with that. And
Yeah,
then
one way,
cortisol.
I was just going to say on growth hormone, like the best way to really benefit there is to go to sleep early, because that is when growth hormone is produced for our bodies. So if we can optimize our circadian rhythm and like make sure we're not just exposed to a bunch of artificial light in the evenings and we're getting outside, then we're going to optimize our melatonin production, which makes us sleepy. So then we're going to sleep on time, which then helps optimize further hormones such as growth hormone as well, T4, growth hormone, all of those things
Yep.
that make us really anabolic happen in the evening. So if we're staying up really late, we're missing that. So that's like huge for our children and ourselves.
And we'll get into sleep too, all about sleep hygiene. And then cortisol. Everybody wants to talk about cortisol right now. Okay, so
Yes.
cortisol is a stress hormone. It is needed. Like we are trying to stress our body when we're building muscle, right? We're trying to stress our muscles to build. Like cortisol is a good thing. It's the prolonged cortisol being too high. It's kind of like the Goldilocks hormone. We don't want too much cortisol. We don't want too little cortisol. So finding the right amount is key. So if we have too much cortisol for too long, we do become catabolic. And our goal right now is to be anabolic. We want to grow. Catabolic is breaking down that muscle tissue. We want to grow it. So we need to really manage our stress levels. And again, we'll talk about how to do that shortly. But in order to really get in that good place as far as cortisol production goes, because again, cortisol is a good thing. We want it, keeps us alive, but we don't want too much or too little of it. So the key is to balancing all of these three things. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to optimize hormones naturally. So there's several ways to do that. We've already introduced the fatty fish, right? Healthy fats from foods like avocados, fatty fish are going to help support testosterone, estrogen, I mean, really all of the sex hormones. It's going to help also with insulin. What's the word I'm looking for? Managing the insulin. Like insulin's going to be high, it's going to be low, but we want to kind of keep it as stable as possible. And healthy fats are going to help to do that, as well as balanced meals. So that's going to be important. The insulin, keeping that at a good pace is going to be helpful for stress management, cortisol. And then that's all going to carry over into optimizing our hormones. And then the fatty fish that are going to help the most, they help with production of EPA, DHA, and they're really high in omega-3s are going to be your smash fish. So salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, and herring. Most people tend to navigate more towards the salmon, but just choose whichever one best suits you. But healthy fats are crucial.
I
And then
like
the same thing.
sardines.
Well, do you?
I was just gonna say sardines from Costco aren't bad. It's definitely brand specific on how like easy they flake up, and if they don't flake up easily, I can't do it. But those of you that follow,
Oh, where'd she go?
Oh, I thought that was just me.
No, okay, it's not. So then I'm just gonna keep going, I guess. We lost her. I know she's having struggles with the internet, so um what else was I? Oh, healthy fats are also important as far as cell transport. So we eat all these wonderful nutrients and vitamins, but in order to transport, like, it's fat, we have fat soluble vitamins. So in order to transport them to the cells, we need fats. So fats are super important. Managing stress, like I mentioned before, and finding the right tool for you as far as how to manage stress is going to be best. For some, that's breath work. For some, that's meditation. For some, that's walking outside unplugged in nature. Some people, it's journaling. So experimenting and finding the way that best suits you as far as managing stress is going to be key. Then strength training, we kind of already briefly talked about that, especially those compound lifts, squats, deadlifts are going to really help boost, especially that testosterone and the testosterone levels. And then sleep, which again, we already talked about, but getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep allows your body to release growth hormone, which peaks during deep sleep. So those are the ways kind of to optimize. And we're going to kind of get more specific as far as each one. We'll talk about sleep first. See if it goes. There we go. Okay, so sleep is essential for mental and physical recovery. We want to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And I know that sleep tends to be a difficult one for most of us women, especially with children that are younger or just don't sleep well. But during deep sleep, that's
Our
when,
older kids too.
right, my one,
Stay up late.
I have one specifically that gives me some trouble.
Mm,
But during deep sleep, your body releases growth hormone, and that promotes muscle repair and fat metabolism. Poor sleep will increase your cortisol levels, which again, we talked about prolonged cortisol levels are going to just have a negative effect on hormone production. They're going to make it harder to stay consistent with your nutrition. They just make you feel like trash. So research shows that even one night of poor sleep can elevate cortisol and impair recovery. So let's talk about ways to get better sleep. So we all know sleep is important, but how can we, get better sleep? So improve your sleep. Michaela already mentioned a little bit, but consistent schedule is super duper important. So even on those weekends, we all like to sleep in a little bit on the weekends, stay up a little bit late. I like to tell clients and then myself, I kind of set boundaries around it. So maybe going to bed an hour later, waking up an hour later, but keeping it like, just a little bit, your window moves just a little bit. So you're still staying really consistent with that sleep routine. That's going to really help with your body's circadian rhythm. Avoiding screens 1 to 2 hours before bed. It gives off blue light, any kind of screen, TV, phone, computer, even overhead lights gives off blue light, and that kind of can, well, not kind of, it does disrupt melatonin production. So when the sun goes down, what I like to recommend is really dimming all of your lights. Just maybe have a small lamp that you put on in a couple of the rooms. And if you want to really get into it, you can get red light bulbs that give off red light that can really help promote sleep. Blue light blocking glasses, we want the ones with the orange lenses. Put them on when the sun goes down. Even if you're not really looking at screens, I mean, most people do look at screens still. But putting those on can really help again with the circadian rhythm and the melatonin production and help you like wind down a lot easier. So if you do all of these things, you put the blue light blocking glasses on, you minimize the blue light that you're getting overhead, you'll naturally find, and I found it with my kids too, like they want to go to bed earlier. You just naturally get a lot sleepier. And then listening to your body when that happens, notice, wow, normally I don't go to bed until 9 or 10, but I feel really tired and it's only 8:30. If you are able to go to bed at 8:30, because that's your
yeah.
body telling you, it's time to go to sleep. A cool and dark environment can be helpful. Not eating 1 to 2 hours before bed can help as well. We want all of the blood to go to our brains when we're sleeping. We don't want it to be in our digestive tract, digesting all that food that we just ate before bed. And then the same thing with, we talked about insulin production earlier, but having this stable insulin levels even while sleeping can be helpful for sleep. And then if you're still having issues with sleep, some supplements that can help. I love magnesium glycinate. I get migraines a lot and I'm just kind of an anxious type person. Magnesium glycinate before bed helps to kind of calm the central nervous system, helps slow everything down. So taking that 30 minutes before bed can be helpful. Ashwagandha can be another supplement that can be helpful. Valerian root is another one. L-theanine. And then as we're getting into winter, I would want you to check your blood work first. But if our vitamin D levels get too low, that can really affect your sleep a lot. If they're too low, you just can have a hard time falling asleep, staying asleep. And if you do take a vitamin D supplement, even the timing of when you take that, depending on your blood work, can have effect on how you sleep. So if you're, for example, vitamin D is normal and you're taking it at a certain time of day, I can't remember which one it is. Is it before? If it's normal and you take it before bed, it makes your sleep worse.
Yes. No, if it's normal, you take it in the morning. If it's
right. If it's
really
normal,
suboptimal, then you take it in the evenings.
yeah. And I firsthand had that happen to me, right? I was like, why am I having trouble sleeping? And my vitamin D levels were low, but then they obviously became normal with supplementation and being more intentional. And I was having trouble sleeping, and then making that swap to vitamin D in the morning made a big difference too. So don't take vitamin D unless you need to. I'd really rather have you get outside. Morning and PM sun exposure, even if it's not sunny, clouds, doesn't matter. Getting outside, rolling down your windows on your way to work, really, really helpful for circadian rhythm and hormone production, thyroid, vitamin D, testosterone and sex hormones, all of it. Is there anything that I missed that you'd add?
I have been reading some recent research on how cold exposure can help prevent some of the degradation of vitamin D levels. So like getting regular cold exposure in the winter, because our body, like we get a lot more vitamin D when we are in the sunlight, obviously, right? And so as we go into the winter months, our days get shorter, our UV levels get lower, and it's just a lot harder to maintain a vitamin D status that's where we want it to be. And so getting regular cold exposure can help you feel better in those winter months and help with like that decline, because it is going to decline over winter. So I personally don't take vitamin D in the winter because I really maximize my outside time in the summer months so that it's high enough that I don't need to take exogenous vitamin D. But that's where looking at your blood work is going to be really important there, because if I was low, I would want to supplement, because that's going to really have a big impact on how I feel through the winter months as well. So getting blood work and then deciding kind of like what's best for you. But either way, getting cold exposure can help. And it'll also help with your energy and mood and improved immune function, which are all going to help here. So keeping that in mind as well.
Yeah, stress and managing stress and anxiety too. Like that's a big one. Like when my kids are feeling anxious, like you want to get them in their body, right? So putting even just something cold around your neck, or like sticking your hands in ice, it really can just kind of help relax, calm, which is going to be helpful for recovery too. So if you can do cold exposure, that would be absolutely amazing.
Even just like getting outside, it's colder in most places right now. So like getting outside for a short walk, 10-minute walk in the cold can do so much for your mood and energy levels this time of year as well.
And then kind of going into that, we're going to talk about recovery. Recovery is when your muscles repair and grow stronger. Skipping recovery increases injuries, burnout, overtraining, under recovering. So having active recovery with light activities, walking, yoga, swimming, Pilates. Some people like to do Pilates, though that's a little bit more intense. But it promotes blood flow without taxing your body too much. That's kind of why we like zone 2 training too. It's a little bit more moderate as opposed to low, but it can really help with recovery too, just getting that blood flowing. And then taking deload weeks. We don't program deload weeks with Hungry Fitness because naturally we tend to go on vacations, we tend to get sick, or sometimes you can just tell that you need a deload week, and everybody's going to be absolutely different when they need that. So just listening to your body and knowing when you need to deload. For some, it's every 6 to 8 weeks. For others, it can be a little bit longer, closer to 12 weeks, depending on what the type of training you're doing or how much you're switching it up. But really paying attention to when you might need a deload, when you need to kind of bring intensity down for a short amount of time, to kind of prevent fatigue, injuries, and overtraining. And then best practices for muscle recovery. We've already talked about hydration, right? How important water is. It plays a key role in muscle function. If you're dehydrated, you're going to get those cramps. You're going to get more sore. So really paying attention to making sure that you're getting enough hydration is key. And for some, you might have to add like sodium, magnesium, potassium to if you are drinking too much water, or if some people, like if you live at altitude, you might need a little bit more help as far as electrolytes go. But making sure hydration, electrolytes are part of hydration. So not just the water, but making sure that you have enough electrolytes is important as well. Some people need them, some people don't. If you're a big sweater, you might need them. If you live at altitude, you might need them. Kind of just play around with that. If you know that you're getting 100 ounces, 120 ounces or more, and you're starting to feel, you're getting more sore or you're getting those muscle cramps, it might be a good idea to add a little bit of sodium, potassium, and magnesium to your liquids. Foam rolling, so increasing foam rolling, massaging. We already talked about cold therapy. It's going to really help reduce muscle tension and help with inflammation and accelerating recovery. Inflammation can kind of tie into this cortisol levels, right? If we're too inflamed, our cortisol tends to be higher. And the same thing with stress. Stress is going to inflame us too. So adding in things like cold exposure, foam rolling, massages are going to be really helpful with recovery. And then the mobility work is going to help a lot with muscle stiffness and improving range of motion. So, you're not getting, when you do RDLs, maybe you're not as sore in your back. You can go a little bit deeper and stretch the hamstrings a little bit more without, pulling from your back and taking the hamstrings out of the equation. So just introducing things like mobility work, foam rolling, cold exposure, and then hydration are going to be really helpful in optimizing muscle growth. And then stress management, huge one. And I know, again, like this is a really hard one for a lot of people to sleep and stress management. So it's critical for muscle growth. Chronic stress raises cortisol levels, leaves us inflamed, which impairs your muscle gains. So again, I kind of talked about it earlier, but finding something that works for you is going to be key. For some people, that's breath work. For some people, that's gratitude. Some people, it's meditation. Some people, it's walking outside unplugged, being around people that bring you a calming state, right? What are some other ideas that you have, Michaela, that are really helpful to you? Mine is outside, nature, sun on my skin, moving my body in some way, but not having something in my ear. I get overstimulated and I need to be outside, I need to be moving. And that's my biggest thing that really helps me manage stress.
That's my main one too.
I would also say
Cold
too,
exposure. I know I said that earlier. That helps me as well. Just getting in my body and being outside.
I would also say managing like your food too. So don't wait too long to eat. Really having those well-balanced meals every few hours to really help. Again, that's going to help with cortisol. That's going to help with your insulin levels, making sure that they're kind of, they're going to go up and down, but they have boundaries. They're fairly stable, which is going to help with sleep and going to help with stress. So having those balanced meals, not waiting too long to eat, not having too much caffeine before you drink any water or before you eat a good meal. Those are all little things too that you could do to help really manage your stress. what about you, Autumn? Is there something in particular that you navigate towards?
Yeah, I have to, I mentioned it this morning on groups. I really have to watch my sleep. If I get like overly
Mhm.
stressed, I have to go out of the way. And that comes down to rescheduling clients, early clients in my gym. It goes to somebody else taking my kids to school. I mean, I'll have to have sleep. And that's just the one thing. I mean, I love getting cold. I love cold plunge. But sleep's huge for me with stress.
And I did forget
Yeah,
to talk
especially the
about
older I
sleep too, but
Yeah. For
mhm.
sure, the older I get, it's like the one thing that, I mean, if I can just tell, it just starts boiling up and I get a lot of anxiety really late at night. In fact, my body really starts shutting down. I'll start feeling sick and I
Mhm.
know I just have to sleep and that it's just stress. And so,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's one thing. I love breath work. I love grounding, walking outside
Barefoot, yeah.
barefoot. I don't get too geeked out in it. I just love the feeling of it. It feels really crisp and it really helps. It sounds really hokey pokey, but I love cold grounding, like when the ground is cold. That helps too.
Mhm.
So, I mean, most of it kind of just goes back to being with your body, finding like, knowing when you're starting to get stressed and when you maybe need to take more effort and be intentional. Do you feel it in your shoulders? Do you feel it in your head when you get headaches? Do you feel it in your stomach? So just really getting in tune with your body. Again, it does sound a little bit, earthy, but it's true. The more that you are self-aware, the more that you ask yourself those questions about like what you're feeling and what you're needing, it can really help to be able to regulate all of these things, which are going to then get you to your goals, right?
I think
We all,
I think the more earthy you go into it, the more earthy you get, the more you're like, well, this makes total sense. Like it makes sense that this helps me. And even though it does, a lot of it sounds kind of hokey pokey, but I think you just have to go that way and try it. And then you realize like, this is really what we should be doing, you
yeah,
know?
I mean, a lot of us are check in the box kind of people. We want like these things that you can just kind of check off the list. I did my strength training session. I got in my macros. Like
Yeah.
you got your to-do list, but a lot of times what you need specifically is going to be different compared to, everybody else. So you have to ask yourself those questions because you're not going to optimize muscle growth. You're not going to, if you enter a fat loss phase later, like you're not going to optimize that unless you can figure out ways to manage stress. You're not going to get, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get optimal results if you can't manage your stress, get good sleep. It's your body will work against you. And we don't want that. We want to teach you how to work with your body and listen to your body so that we can, and you can help yourself and we can help you kind of get to the end goal for you. And we
Yeah.
want you to feel good too. Looking good's awesome, but we want you to feel good.
Yeah. I was gonna say one note on that, which I think some of you may already be starting to notice. I've seen some comments in the app on this, in that like, oh, I am seeing progress. I do feel so much more energy when I haven't been eating enough for a long period of time. And I can speak to this for myself and for clients. When you are in a calorie deficit, whether that's for a short period of time or like chronically in a calorie deficit, your body is less resilient to stress. Which means you're more catabolic, which Sam mentioned earlier. Your body's breaking things down. And so if you get sleep and you just eat enough, like 80% of your problems, they don't go away, but you can handle them so much better. I find if I'm under eating, whether that's intentionally or unintentionally, I am way more likely to feel more anxious, and more like fatalistic. And
Irritable.
so if I'm just fueling my body, I still have the same problems, but have way more capacity to handle them now. And so I think just remembering that too, like if you're feeling really anxious, if you're feeling really underfueled, if you're feeling really like emotional, ask yourself, am I eating enough? Am I eating what I have planned to eat, or am I under eating? Am I undersleeping? Am I overtraining? All of those things, like our bodies aren't made to, especially with every decade we add to our lives, like what we could handle in our 20s. There's a reason why, you're doing the same things and not seeing results maybe now in your 40s or your 30s that you did in your 20s. And we need more. We need more recovery. We likely need more food. We need more tools because we have way more stress. So just remembering, we also have like lower sex hormones that are supporting ourselves. And so we need to give our bodies more care as we age. That doesn't mean we can't still achieve great things, but we need to be more delicate with that process for sure. And so hopefully in this cohort, you are fueling your body and you're feeling and noticing that change. And as you continue to prioritize the rest, you'll feel even better.
Getting okay with knowing that it might take a little longer, but you're spinning your wheels, like maybe in a previous fat loss phase, you're spinning your wheels, you're eating a very low amount, you're not building muscle. Again, why? Because you've been doing the same thing for too long and it's not working. We need to take care of our body. When you're in a calorie deficit, that's stress. When you're training, that's stress. We want it to be stress. That's the whole point, right? Is to get better. But all of these stressors are just, too much. You're going to tank your thyroid levels, your testosterone levels, and then you're going to pay for it as we age. So we have to, we worry about our kids and, our kids get grumpy. When was the last time you ate? Like sometimes that's the first thing that you ask them. Like, are you hungry? Well, we should ask ourselves the same thing. All right, and then just a sample day for hormone optimization. So in the morning, and again, everybody's schedule is different. So this is going to be very individualized, but can you journal in the morning or breath work? When I used to work at the hospital or at the school, I would do breath work on my drive to work. So like I can't close my eyes, but I would like breathe in, like I would get with myself, breathe in, breathe out, kind of prepare for the day. And then afternoon, maybe you can do a strength training session. In the evening, can you foam roll or stretch? Have your magnesium. My girls still like me to kind of read them a book and kind of sit next to their bed until they fall asleep. So I read the book and then I kind of stretch while I'm waiting for them to fall asleep, while we listen to calming music. So like just finding those ways, talking about kind of habit stacking. So I'm already putting my girls to bed. What can I do during that time to continue to take care of myself? Stretching. Can I do some breath work while I'm listening to the calming music that they're hearing? So the evenings, the supplements, I know I'm going to put my daughters to bed at this time. So before I walk up the stairs, take your magnesium. So just learning how to like thinking through your day and what you're already doing and figuring out times and ways that you can do things that are going to be beneficial as far as recovery and de-stressing are going to be helpful. And no screens before bed. Get outside. Can you roll down your windows in the morning on your way to work, on the way home? Do you walk the dogs in the evening, or can you start walking the dogs in the evening? Little things like that. Dimming the lights. So maybe the sun goes down, or maybe you get home from running your kids around from sports. That can be your cue to we don't just turn all the lights on when we get inside, but we have one little light that's going to be on and a little lamp. So habit stacking I found is the best way for clients to kind of figure out where to start. And then just going into next week, so we're going to have our normal focus, hit the 10% protein and 10% calorie goal. We want you to get 3 HF workouts if you're doing the HF workouts. If you're not, some kind of resistance training 3 times a week, preferably progressive overload. And then our focus this week is going to be to complete 3 mobility sessions. So that can be anything. It can be stretching, yoga. I would count foam rolling as a mobility session. So we want you to get at least 3 of those in. So figure out your week, even add it to your calendar, which days and where in your day can you put that so that you can be successful this week.
I'll send some videos that I like also for just like at home as well.
And that is about it. So now I want you guys to ask questions. What's one thing that you're going to implement this week and when? Are there any questions at all yet?
Oh, I like the what's one thing you're going to implement this week and when. Um, I think the only probably benefit from the fallback time change is that it's dark sooner and well, the days are shorter. And so I have found this past week I am more tired earlier. And I'm just taking advantage of that. And instead of like I'm working really hard to get my kids to bed a little bit earlier so that I can get to bed earlier. And I've noticed it helps me a lot with how I'm feeling in the mornings. And so that's the one thing I'm implementing this week is like really getting more clear on my bedtime plan for my family and what that looks like so that we can go to bed and the house is clean when we go to bed. Like that helps me a lot too to wake up to a clean home. I feel a clear mind with everyone on expectations around bedtime and just like cleaning up our sleep hygiene as a family this time of year. Yes,
Yeah.
wear the blue light blocking glasses. It will change your life. Rose.
I've gotten to the point where I can't even go to sleep without my blue light blocking glasses. My body doesn't physically shut down to sleep. So they definitely work. Especially now that the days are getting shorter, you're gonna have a wider time frame or bigger time frame to have, exposure to the blue lights and just the lights in general around you. And it makes it really hard on you through the winter. So I feel like this is a really good time to implement blue light blockers with the time changing.
Yeah, the days are only going to get shorter. And they're such a cheap thing to buy that with like the return on it, on the cost is so high, that it's definitely worth trying for sure. And you will quickly notice a difference. Like give it a week and you'll start to notice yourself getting more tired earlier. And like, don't fight that. I will even wear them. We have late night basketball games. One night a week. We have sports, I swear. And I'll wear them when we go to play basketball because it's like lots of artificial blue light and my body has a hard time like calming down and going to sleep after that. And so if I wear my blue light blocking glasses to games, I can go to sleep a lot easier. So just not being afraid of trying something new. Even if you look like a dork, maybe it's worth it.
And I think too, with the time change, it's getting lighter earlier. So take advantage of, in the summer, we have a hard time getting morning sunlight, right? Because our kids get up and it's go time. But now with that extra hour in the top of the day, it's been a lot easier for me to implement my morning light that I can get outside a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. Quiet group today.
Yeah. Not many questions. Usually I'm used to like, okay, a lot of questions. And the blue light blocking glasses, just make sure you get the orange ones if there's somebody that's wanting them and doesn't have them. Just things that we talked about that I guess we could give recommendations for. Magnesium glycinate. I like the Zoo. It's ZHOU brand. I get that off Amazon. What else?
Yeah.
Finding ways to cook your salmon. You guys probably already figured that out because you had that as a task already, but I love smoked salmon. So that's my go-to is smoked salmon.
How do you like to eat yours, Sam?
I eat it straight up. I just eat the salmon. But it's also good with like avocado on a slice of whole grain bread. But I like it just plain. It's salty and it like melts in your mouth if it's good quality. I just love it.
Where do you get it from Costco or where do you prefer? Like,
Well, before we moved to Texas and North Carolina, I got it at Publix and I loved it. I just bought it
oh
now that
yeah.
we're here from Costco, so we'll see how it compares. I tried some from HEB and it was really good, but they only had like one, so not enough. So I'll keep you
Okay.
posted on the Costco.
Athena said she's adding morning sunlight and mobility this week, also making sure to have dinner before taking kids to activities to avoid late meals. Yes, I love that one. I have been doing the same. I personally would rather eat dinner at 4 p.m. than 7:30 p.m. And those are kind of like our two options with sports. And so I love having dinner ready to go early. So like the kids that can eat early can, including myself. And then if kids have to eat late, they can still eat late. It's ready, but at least that gives you the option for either. Where if I wait and have it ready at 7:30, I have already eaten a pre-dinner. So I feel so much better if I can have like a well-rounded meal. And if I need a snack later, I'll do a snack later versus the reverse. That doesn't usually work well for me. So I love that. And Pilates would definitely fall under mobility, I would say.
Yeah, I would too. Anything else?
I was gonna add something. Fish oil. I love Nordic Naturals brand for that. I can get it on Amazon. It's third-party tested, and I think kind of the issue with getting like a cheap fish oil is that it's more likely to go rancid and you not know that. And so theirs is very like high quality on the testing, and then it's one of the least likely ones to have that occur. So that's what we purchase. But really, if you're just eating fish regularly, you probably won't need to supplement, but that's an option to kind of help, especially in the winter months, like make sure inflammation is low and you have enough omega-3s. How much weight is too much to gain each week when we check in on the app to possibly look at macros?
Mhm.
I mean, initially it's always going to be a bigger bump, right? Well, I would say what, 3 to 5, depending on, I mean, it's hard to say. But
Yeah,
if you're consistently gaining on like your weekly average, you're consistently gaining more than like a pound a week, then, you know, I would reach out maybe for an
yeah.
adjustment.
Yeah, I think that first week or two, if you're new to lifting, you're adding in creatine, you're increasing food intake, like it's possible to see if, and then maybe that times up with like ovulation or your cycle, it's possible to see like a 5-pound increase, right? But giving that 2 weeks, you should see that start to kind of regulate and come back down and then level out. And if it doesn't, if it continues to climb past that 2-week mark, then definitely reach out, and we can kind of take a look at things. Up 3 pounds from last week. I'll check over the next week to see trend. Yeah. And that can be just inflammation. Like I was up 3 pounds last week and now I'm down right back to normal. So, things to consider if you do see a big jump in the scale are how's sleep quality. If I'm sleeping less, then I carry more inflammation. Are you new to training? Are you sore? Then you're probably carrying more inflammation. Did you have higher carb intake last week? Because even just like the same calorie intake, but having a higher ratio of carbs is going to bring in more water into your cells. So that could be it. Was
How
your
late did you
sodium,
eat? Did you have
yeah, was your sodium
alcohol?
intake higher? Alcohol intake will definitely travel, like especially if you're flying, will definitely impact the scale, and then hormones. So are you
Yeah.
ovulating? Are you about to, or did you just start your period? So I would give it a week and like kind of just see how things regulate as well. If you're eating more food, that's more glycogen in your muscles to also, and more food in your digestive tract initially. So it takes a minute for your body to regulate.
Yep. And sodium too. Did you introduce anything like packaged in the last couple days?
Go out to eat more.
Out to eat more? There was another one I thought of, but I just lost it. But there's so many things that can affect it. So I like to do 2 to 3 weeks and seeing what the trend
Yeah.
is for
See
2
how
to 3
yep.
weeks. Did you introduce creatine monohydrate? Because I know that we kind of talked about that a little bit,
Yeah.
but that can initially cause, again, it brings water to the cells, which is the whole point. But that can reflect on the scale sometimes. It usually stabilizes, but initially that can cause a little bit of a spike too.
Good questions though.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's really helpful to weigh yourself every day too and just take that weekly average.
The more data, the better.
And then also looking at measurements, like maybe weight's up, but waist is maintaining, like that's usually a good indication, probably water weight or inflammation. So paying attention to all of those things. And then we're always happy to take a look though, if you're concerned.
Yes, please reach out.
Great. Well, thanks for joining everyone. We're super excited for week 3 next week. I know we have these calls on Tuesday and we're talking about the week ahead and we're still like a week away. So continue this week and let us know if you have questions on anything. And thank you so much for the education this week, Sam. And here we go, week 2. All right. Thanks,
Good
everyone.
week.
Have a good day.
Bye.